Get ready, because today we're going to look at the 5 fantasy cliches that I hate the most. By the way, my name is Brandon McNulty. I'm the author of Bad Parts, and welcome to my writing channel. Fantasy is one of the most beloved and popular storytelling genres, but it's not without its share of annoying cliches. With that in mind, today I'll be discussing 5 of them. I'll explain what each cliche is, why you should avoid it, and I'll give you an example of each. Here's your spoiler warning for today. The ones in red contain the heaviest spoilers. First cliche that I hate is inconsistent magic. This is when a story's magic system abandons its rules for the sake of plot convenience. It's a cheap way to create and resolve conflict, and you have a situation where characters become weak whenever the writer wants them to be weak, or characters become strong whenever the writer needs them to be strong. And characters may even escape danger by using skills they've never mastered, and this can especially be frustrating if new magical abilities appear in the late stages of a story without proper setup and payoff. Wonder Woman 1984 is full of this problem. The basic plot centers on this magical stone that grants wishes. Whatever you wish for becomes real, but it comes with a cost. Diana wishes to be reunited with her lover from the first movie, and in return her superpowers slowly fade. Or it might be more accurate to say her powers disappear and reappear whenever the writers see fit. For instance, midway through the movie, she's supposedly losing her powers, yet she's still able to run as fast as a speeding truck during a highway chase sequence. Later, while fighting a supervillain, Diana manages to absorb deadly blows while matching the villain's strength. And then there are some major issues with setups and payoffs. Midway through the movie, magic comes out of nowhere when Diana turns a plane invisible, and then later, after renouncing her wish to bring back her lover, she somehow gains the ability to fly. Inconsistencies like these hurt the story's believability, and what sucks is there's a decent idea here that goes to waste. It could have been interesting to see how Diana responds to becoming powerless, but instead of challenging her to use her brains or her guts to overcome obstacles, the writers gave us lazy spectacle. Second cliche that I hate: epic battles where nobody dies. And by nobody, I mean nobody important. This is when there's a deadly battle, but all the important characters have plot armor. NPCs and minor characters may die, but the real heroes survive the most desperate situations again and again. They're usually saved by luck rather than strategy or skill. There might be fake-out deaths to manipulate the audience's emotions, and without a major death, the battle feels too safe. Season 6 of Game of Thrones is guilty of this. Now don't get me wrong, the Battle of the Bastards is mesmerizing to watch, but Jon Snow has enough plot armor for a small country. I mean, he's right there on the front lines where people are getting slaughtered left and right, yet he fights on without a scratch. Later, he gets trapped under a pile of bodies, and it looks like he might suffocate, but then he gets saved in the nick of time. Meanwhile, the only remotely notable character who dies is Wun-Wun, and he gets shot to death with arrows while Jon and Tormund stand around in their plot armor. Another example comes from Avengers Endgame. The final showdown is undeniably epic and stylish, but not one hero dies during this all-out war. Because of this, the battle carries less emotional weight than it should, and it essentially spins its wheels until Iron Man's big moment. Third cliche that I hate: confusing character names. This is when character names make the story harder to follow. It's a case of world building getting in its own way, and the writer tries to get creative, but instead the names take the audience out of the story. And this brings us to House of the Dragon. I finally got around to watching season 1, and while I enjoyed it, one thing that constantly tripped me up was the characters' names. First off, you have King Viserys, who shares a name with Viserys from Game of Thrones. Okay, that's not too bad, but then you have the king's daughter, Princess Rhaenyra, the king's cousin, Princess Rhaenys, and the king's niece, Lady Rhaena. Now, Princess Rhaenyra has 2 sons named Jacaerys and Lucerys, which makes them the grandsons of King Viserys, and they happen to be around the same age as the king's sons, Aegon and Aemond, whose names sound vaguely like that of the king's brother, Daemon. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking, oh, come on, it's a TV show, who cares if the names are confusing? After all, we can see the characters on the screen, right? And while that's true, the problem comes when one character discusses another. When names pop up in conversation, that's where the show stumbles, and those moments often take me out of the story as I try to rack my brain in hopes of remembering who's who. Fourth cliche that I hate: Tacked-on Destiny. This is when a normal, everyday character pursues an important goal for a good chunk of the story, and then they find out they're also fulfilling this unexpected destiny. Now, I have no problem with stories that start with someone trying to fulfill their destiny, but when it gets added in late, the destiny usually has minimal impact. It's just a forced plot development that makes the story feel contrived, and it undermines the character's actual journey. One of the most obvious examples of this is Leia from the original Star Wars trilogy. She's established as this gritty rebel who earns our respect in the first two movies. Then in Return of the Jedi, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, she's also a Skywalker, and she could potentially decide the fate of the galaxy. Now, not only is the twist itself a letdown because it comes after the Vader reveal, but it also undermines Leia's accomplishments. Instead of her being a battle-tested warrior who acts as this beacon of hope within the rebellion, we now understand that all along she's been this puzzle piece within a larger scheme. Another example comes from Final Fantasy VIII. Believe it or not, this is my favorite game of all time. I love it to death. I've spent countless hours defending it on random message boards, but even I will admit that the story has some major issues. Now, the plot centers on a group of mercenaries who have to stop an evil sorceress from conquering the world and time itself. The group consists of 6 people who meet each other in military school, and about midway through the game, one of them realizes he grew up in an orphanage that was run by the sorceress. Okay, silly coincidence, right? Well, actually it gets worse because next thing you know, 4 other members of the group also remember that they too grew up in that same orphanage. So rather than having these normal, everyday heroes uniting in order to eliminate a threat, we're left with this goofy scenario where the kids grew up together, suffered memory loss for over a decade, and then conveniently teamed up to battle the woman who raised them. It's a twist no one asked for, and the element of destiny does more harm than good here. Finally, the 5th cliche that I hate is fake stakes. This is when a story's stakes are raised ridiculously high, but ultimately they're meaningless. Often in fantasy stories you have villains who cause worldwide destruction, but then the heroes come up with a neat and tidy solution that undoes all the damage. Consequences either get erased or ignored, world-building details go to waste, and emotional impact suffers. For an example, let's go back to Wonder Woman 1984. The movie's main villain is a businessman named Max Lord, who obtains the Dreamstone and actually wishes to become the Dreamstone. He then spends the rest of the movie granting wishes and causing worldwide chaos. Then he learns that his body will deteriorate unless he grants more wishes. That motivates him to appear on a worldwide broadcast, and he tells everyone to make their wishes. Many people wish for suffering and destruction, but just as things are getting out of hand, Wonder Woman whips Max with her lasso of truth and convinces everyone to renounce their wish. Max himself then renounces his own wish, and the whole world goes back to normal. Like, totally normal. Seriously, there are no consequences whatsoever. Everyone in this movie, including the villain, enjoys a happy ending. And that brings us to Avengers Endgame. This movie follows Infinity War, where the stakes are raised impossibly high. Half of all life in the universe disappears, and then in Endgame, the surviving superheroes use time travel to bring everyone back. Some audiences hated this, and while it personally didn't bother me, I do understand the frustration. But regardless of how you feel about the use of time travel, the biggest problem with Endgame is how it failed to adequately address the consequences of the snap. Eliminating half of all life for 5 years should essentially destroy civilization, yet people live in relative comfort during the aftermath. And when the heroes do bring everyone back, that raises a ton of world-building questions that never get answered in Endgame or in the MCU in general. I get that it's a superhero movie and we're here to have fun, but at the same time, ignoring the consequences of worldwide destruction is a mistake, not to mention a blown opportunity to explore fresh new territory. So I hope this helps. Question of the day: what fantasy cliche do you hate most? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the channel, please pick up a copy of any one of my books and be sure to leave reviews on Amazon. Bad Parts is great if you like small town horror. It's about people trading away their sick and injured body parts in order to get healthy again. And also, if you want to support the channel, like, share, and subscribe. Check out my other videos, tell other people about it. And as always, remember to keep on writing.